Hey everyone, welcome to the Simply Soccer podcast. I believe we're on number 14. I think that's correct. You guys will obviously know because you'll be looking at the title and the screen. So I hope it's 14. Anyway, last week we went over a pretty important topic. We went over how to get good at soccer really fast. We talked about consistency, incremental integrity, about not letting people tell you what your limits are or what your potential is, which is a very important lesson. So if you did miss that one, I highly recommend you go back. It was a lesson that really went off on tangents, or a podcast that really went off on tangents and was really off the cuff. Even though I had a general outline of what I wanted to say, it was really off the cuff. I kind of went off on a lot of tangents, but I think there's a lot of good information in there. So take a look at that. It was all kind of like on motivation, getting yourself to that next level. And speaking of getting yourself to that next level, it's kind of what we're going to talk about today, because we're going to talk about how to play college soccer. And more importantly, what you need in order to play college soccer, what attributes you need, what skills you need, things of that nature. And the reason I chose this topic is because I was actually watching a football match of the university I played at. So it should be how to play college or university soccer. They're essentially the same thing. But I was watching the university I played at, I went to, playing a match, and I noticed, some similarities between the players who were doing very well. I noticed what players are doing well, and I noticed the players that weren't doing well. I noticed they all lacked certain things. So we're going to go over those areas. I'm going to go over what areas those good players were really good at, which was allowing them to play very well. And I'm going to go over the areas that I thought the players that weren't doing so well, or were just kind of, not really present in the game and weren't making much of an impact. I'm going to go over what they were not doing well and what they could have been doing well in order to make more of a difference. Okay, so yes, go back and watch that previous podcast if you haven't already. I think it was one of the better ones that we've done so far. It definitely, it really talks about not letting people kind of limit you, because really limitations are all in your head. They're all up to your mind. You can really achieve much more than you ever think that you can. There are actually limits. Everyone does have limits, but they're nowhere near what you think they are. I mean, not even close. You can't even fathom what your limits truly are. So definitely go take a look at that. But today we're going over this. So let's go over how to play college soccer. So college soccer, before we get into the attributes, let me first and foremost say it's 100% a step up from high school soccer in most cases. Unless you go to an absolutely crap college team, I haven't seen too many bad college teams. They're all at least solid to really, really good. Unless you go to an absolutely dreadful one, it's always going to be a step up from high school soccer. Every single player you're coming up against is going to be physically mature to a certain degree. There might be some players that are still growing into their bodies or whatever, but for the most part, you're playing men now. You're not playing boys. And it may be young men, but sometimes it's even worse because they're more energetic, more ready to play, and less prone to injuries sometimes as well. So it's much tougher. It is definitely more intense. It's definitely quicker. It's definitely more physical than high school soccer. Okay, so if you are looking to make that step up, there are a few things you need to concentrate on. If you are in high school, and I know a lot of you are, or you're between the ages of 13 to 17, which is around high school age, or 18 sometimes, there's some things you want to be focusing on that college coaches look for, that you'll need if you want to start college matches or even have interest from college teams. So the first and foremost, I should say, and the first one is something you should be in already, but it's very, very important when you get to college, and you need to be in great shape. You need to be very fit. College soccer is much quicker. It's much more demanding. There's a lot more running going on. There's a lot more running expected of you. There isn't a single college program that I've ever encountered, and I've gone to a few, as in I've gone to their camps. I've looked at their preseasons. I can compare them to my preseason I had at my college, and they're all intense. There's no accepting out of shape. There are players who I've seen dropped and not played who have been really good, but didn't play because they're out of shape. There's no BSing your fitness in college soccer. Sometimes you can get away with it in high school. I did a little bit because my fitness wasn't perfect in high school. But there's no BSing in college. The coaches will know they will not play you until you're in shape. In fact, this happened to me When I went to college soccer at first, I didn't come into preseason in shape. I was harboring a little bit of an injury, so I didn't come in fully fit. And the first few sessions they were intense. The first few preseason sessions, it was in the hot sun. And that's going to happen. And I actually cramped up in my calves back for the first few days, every single one without fail. And that's a reoccurring problem I used to have, but still, that's usually a sign of poor fitness. So, they did whip me into shape eventually, and I did get into shape, but I didn't start right away. The first two games, I came in off the bench because I wasn't in good shape. And I did get myself into shape after that and started the rest of the matches, but you need to be in shape. The good thing about most college programs is because they're intense, they will get you into shape, but if you don't come into preseason camp at least in decent shape, it's more work that the coach has to spend on you instead of focusing on drills and tactics and other things. The last thing a coach wants to focus on when the season is just around the corner is your fitness. That should be something that's already under control. Okay, so it should only be the first few weeks of preseason that are taking care of it, but come in good shape, because if you're not in great shape, you're just not going to play. In fact, if you're not in great shape, you might not even make a college team. If you're not in great shape in high school, and coaches pick up on that, they'll be like, he's good, but he seems winded all the time, or he keeps being out of breath, or he keeps having to get subbed off every 10 minutes because he can't last, the whole half. So make sure you're in great shape. It's much more intense, and you want to be able to do, go 100% for the whole match, right? And there are I think in most divisions in college there are unlimited subs. I mean, you can get subbed each half, but even so, man, you want to play as much football as you can. If you want to be an important part of a college team, if you want to be playing a lot of minutes going into college, even your freshman year, if you're good enough, you'll play freshman year. This isn't high school. In college, it's if you're the best player, you play. If you're not the best player, it doesn't matter if you're a senior, it doesn't matter if you're a junior. If you're not in shape, if you're not better than the other players, you won't play. So that's an encouraging thing for freshmen coming in. If you're good enough as a freshman, you'll start. I started as a freshman, and in fact, I think three other players, two or three other players in my class, so in my freshman class, started as freshmen. There were, I think, four of us starting, because we were more in shape, or we were good enough to start. So there's none of that politics in college soccer. So make sure you're in great shape. Give yourself the best chance possible, because I'll tell you what, if you're not in shape, you're not going to play. That's like a guaranteed, okay? So get in shape, and we'll worry about the other attributes later. But the first thing is get in shape. And the reason for this is it's very physical. College soccer is very physical. You're going to have to get used to being shoved around a little more, harder tackles, and you're going to have to get used to using your body more. You're going to have to get used to being physical yourself. If you're not a very physical player, you're going to have to start getting used to it. And your coaches will show you how to do that. Like if you go to a program, ask your coach, can you help me with this or whatever, but you need to be strong. You need to be able to hold off players. You need to be able to not be afraid to go in for tackles and so on. And also, it's going to be very, very fast. Sometimes this is good. I mean, like I was watching the game that I told you my university that I played for was playing in today. I was watching it, and there were times when I'm like, okay, this is too fast. Someone needs to just take control of this match and slow it down, because it was kind of back and forth. No one was taking control. At least on the university I went to, no one was like making the right decisions. And so it is going to be really fast, but and you're going to have to be used to that, because a lot of teams play that way, and you're going to be covering a lot of ground. I remember when I was playing, like I was running all over the place. I had to, and I was playing midfielder and striker most of the time, and it's a lot of running. There's going to be a lot of running where you don't even get the ball, and you're still going to have to run. It's just inevitable. Okay, so that's kind of the general idea of what college soccer is. It's much more physical. It's much more demanding and intense. You can't get away with being out of shape, and it's fast. It's really, really fast. It's probably going to be a lot faster than you're used to, and you can get used to it, but you're going to have to, start playing quickly. You're going to have to, and actually in the last podcast, we talked a little bit about vision and speed of play and thinking quickly so you can make decisions. So that might be another thing to take a look at. But yeah, you're going to have to start getting to play fast. Now, again, you need to learn between when you should play fast and when you shouldn't, because I thought in the game I just watched, there were a few times a lot of players panicked because they thought they had someone on them and they had no one on them. They could have turned, they could have played a better ball, but just for the most part, it's going to be very, very quick. All right, so let's take a look at some of the attributes I think you need and makes a good college player. I'm going to focus, obviously, you need to be good at most things to be a good college player, but I'm going to go over some things I thought was lacking in the game I watched, and I noticed that the standout players, or the players that really caught my eye, were the ones that were good at these areas, and the players that were struggling were the ones that weren't so good at these areas. So let's go over the first one, and the first one is you'll do well in college soccer if you have good ball control. Now, I harp on about ball control all the time, and there's a reason for it, because at every single level, it's an asset. If you have fantastic ball control, it doesn't matter if you're a kid, if you're on a travel team, a college team, or even a professional team. Having great ball control is an asset. And the higher up you get in the level, so the higher up you go in what level you play, the better everyone's ball control is going to be. But if you have fantastic ball control, then it's just all about developing other little areas in order to become a good player. Good ball control is one of just the foundations of a good player. If you can control the ball, I mean, let's look at the word ball control, the ability to control the ball. Having control over the ball. It's basically being able to make the ball do what you want it to do. Being able to manipulate the ball. The ball's in the air and it's coming to you, and there's a player that's right next to you and you need to bring it down and quickly one touch it to the left. With good ball control, you can do that. It's being able to do whatever you want with the ball. And if you can do whatever you want with the ball, imagine how good you'll be. So good ball control is something that you need to develop. Again, a great way of doing this is going. And let me actually, before I say a great way to do it, let me just explain something. My freshman year of college soccer, after the year had concluded, we had a very good year. We had a winning season. We made it to the final of our conference. We made it to the semis of the regionals. And at the end of the year, our coach was saying, we did very good. A lot of new players came in and did very well. And he said, but I want you to notice something about the players who came in and did well, or the players who in general had good seasons and the players that didn't. And he said, the players that had good seasons for us this year all have great ball control and first touch. And he really tried to emphasize that you need to have that if you want to be a good player in college. And it was kind of a moment of clarity for me, because when he said it, I was thinking over the season and I was like, he's right. Because I was looking at all the players who had done very well for us that year. And I was like, every single one of the players that did well for us this year were all players that had a fantastic first touch and good ball control. And the players that didn't do so well or didn't play that much had kind of shaky ball control, good in moments, but inconsistent. So that's directly from a college coach who's actually won trophies. So he knows what he's talking about. And he told us at the end of our season that the players that did well were the ones that had good ball control. Okay? So if that doesn't really drive that point home, I don't know what will. So I was one of the players that had a really, really good season that year. I was our top scorer my freshman year. And let me tell you how I improved my ball control. And I've said this many times, and I really very passionate about this. I've even had people who commented after I've mentioned this and said, he's right. I do this too, and it's improved my ball control so much. Okay? And it's no secret. It's no super secret drill that's going to, that, the soccer gods have bestowed upon me. I already made that joke in a previous podcast, but it's kicking against a wall. I know it sounds so simple, but it is so effective. And that is literally how I improved my ball control. I would do nothing but that to improve my ball control most of the time. I had a wall behind my house. There was an empty parking lot with a wall. And I would kick against it some nights for hours. And I loved it. I enjoyed it because I would shoot against it. It wasn't just my ball control that got better. My shooting got better. My passing got better. My skill moves, because I was doing them on the street. Everything about my game pretty much got better. My fitness got better because I was playing all the time. But guys, if you want to work on your ball control, your game in general, go to a wall, go to a wall, go to a wall, and just spend like 30 minutes. That's it. Just spend like 30 minutes every single day. You don't even have to spend that much time. Spend 10 or 20 and just notice as time goes along and you're doing that every single day, how much better your touch gets. So what I would do is I would kick it against the wall and I would control it with the inside of my foot, play it back, use my other foot. I would hit it up high on the wall and then control it one touch out of the air with my chest and volley it back. I would, on the volley, then use the top of my foot to control the ball. I would whack it against the wall and have the ball shoot right back at me and control it. And I got so good at that in matches, I had muscle memory. I mean, there were so many I mean, I remember I got a ball, and I remember this, and this is not to, like, you know, seem big-headed or anything, but I got the ball was shot upfield, and I was near the wing, and it was like really launched upfield. The ball came over my head, and in one touch, I took it out of the air right to my feet, and then passed it off to a teammate. And I remember our bench going, you know, like when your teammates kind of go up and go, whoa, like that, yeah, or whatever, like that. That happened because although it was just a simple ball control, it was an incredibly hard thing to do. It was a very good touch. And I learned that skill by literally practicing against a wall. When I was against the wall, I would kick it so that it went over my head, and I would practice bringing it down in one touch. And this happened a few times in the season. There was another time where actually might have been the same game. The opponent was on me. I flipped it over his head, and it went over him, and the ball was facing my goal. I was in their half, but I flipped it away from their goal. Then he came after he was beaten, came back. I used my chest and flipped it back over him again and went towards their goal, and flawlessly. And the reason I could do that is because I practiced my ball control. And again, these are not to brag. These are just examples of what you can do if you have good ball control. Like, ball control is just the foundation to me of all skills with the ball. I don't think you can do much else if you have poor ball control. I don't think you can even shoot well, because good ball control comes down to your feel of the ball, your relationship with the ball, so to speak, even though that sounds a bit weird. But, you know, your connection with the ball. And it gets to a point where you can see and feel where you're going to hit it on the ball before you do it. And I'm not going to explain that because it's a very intuitive thing that you have to learn. But seriously, start kicking against the wall. That's pretty much the whole point of this little anecdote, is kick against the wall. You want good ball control? Kick against the wall. Hit it hard, hit it soft. Control with the inside, the outside, the top, the chest, the thighs. Do some other stuff, work on your shooting, and that will improve your ball control. Okay? Next, have good vision. This is another one that I find players struggle with, and even in college, players struggle with this, and the standout players are the ones with the good vision. And vision is simply awareness on the pitch. We went over this in the last podcast, right? It's your awareness of where everyone is. Do you know where your teammates are? Do you know where your opponents are? Can you keep your head down and ping a ball to your teammate 30 yards away because you know he's there, because you have awareness? That is huge. And one of the things I noticed in the game I was watching is sometimes a lot of the players, they would have a person wide open in the middle, and they wouldn't see them, right? They would just clear the ball. There were so many times that they could have played this guy in the middle, and this was both teams, by the way, but they could have played a player in the middle, and instead they didn't have the vision. They didn't get their head up. They weren't aware that he was there, and they just booted the ball clear. And it was just such a frustrating thing to watch, simply because if you have good vision, you see him there, you play him, you've opened up the whole field. And a lot of times this person was in a lot of space. Like, there was no way he was going to lose the ball unless he missed it or it was a bad pass. But you need good vision. And these are things now we're getting into that are going to make you a really good college player. Again, you can probably scrape by on a half-decent team with okay ball control and okay vision and okay stuff. You're not going to start, and you're probably not going to get too much game time. So we don't want to do that. We want to develop the skills that are going to make you a standout college player, a college player that starts matches. I'm assuming that's what you guys want. You don't want to be a bit part in the team. You want to be an important contributor. You want to be someone who makes an impact. You want to be someone who scores goals, sets up plays, right? You want to be that player that other teams are like, we need to cover that guy. And they're like, oh crap, number 10 on that team. I've been watching him. He's really good. Cover him. You want to be that player. I know maybe you don't want the added pressure, but you want to be that player the other teams don't like because you're really good. So first is good ball control. Next is vision. Have good vision. Be aware of what's around you. Now, good vision is no good unless your passing's good. So have good passing. Now, the thing with passing is if you're going to the wall to work on your ball control anyway, your passing will improve. Because passing just comes from technique. Yeah, a lot of it comes also from practicing, your distances and things like that. But I've never, if I'm being completely honest, I've never really done huge hardcore passing sessions. Passing is something that just is happening all the time in training and in your team trainings and everything, that you'll get good at it. You can, if your passing is particularly poor, definitely work on it. But it's something that you should have developed already. If you're kicking against the wall, you should improve it through doing that. But if you have good vision, it's no good if your passing's not good. So make sure your passing is good, so then when you have the vision and the awareness and you see your teammates in these positions, you're able to get it to them. Now, the next one is probably it's not the most important, but it's, again, something that kind of ties in with vision, and something that really, if you can get this down, if you can become really good at this, you will be a standout college player. Because it's just one of the most infuriating things when I watch matches. Now, one of the things that certain professionals become professionals is because they're really, really good at this. There are many players out there who are technically gifted and technically good enough to play professional soccer. But this one little thing I'm going to tell you is what holds so many players back, and it's decision making. Here's the rub. If you are an amazing player, you have like Ronaldo level skills, you can shoot a rocket on goal, you can pass like a 50-yard bomb to your winger accurately, and you have good ball control. If your decision making sucks, it doesn't matter, does it? Because you're going to make the wrong decisions. You're going to choose the wrong passes. You're going to shoot when you shouldn't. You're going to try and take a man on when you shouldn't. You're going to not take a man on when you should. You're going to not shoot when you should. Decision making is so important, knowing when to make the right decisions. And this was killing a lot of players I was watching in the game. And again, this is a learned thing. A lot of times I feel like decision making or poor decision making comes down to pressure. You're feeling pressure and you don't want to make a mistake, so you take the safe route and you don't calm down. And so you just blast the ball upfield. Like I said, a lot of players did that game. But the players I saw who were standing out were these players who were making great decisions. They were, coming back inside the field to open the field up instead of just playing it out to someone under pressure. They were playing clever balls, not the obvious ball. They were taking players on when they knew they should, like running to the byline so that they at least won a corner. They were making the right decisions. When in defense, they knew when to pass and they knew when to get the ball the hell out of there. In the middle, they knew when there was a man on them, when they could turn, and when they should play it back to the teammate who passed it to them. Decision making is so important because you could be the most technically gifted player in the world, but if you have poor decision making, if you only make the right decision like 50% of the time, what good is it? You won't have an impact. You'll have a negative impact, in fact. So you need to have good decision making. Now, we went over in the last podcast, I think we briefly touched on decision making, but I'll briefly touch on it again. First and foremost, I said vision ties into decision making. Because if you're not aware of what's around you, you're automatically probably going to make a poor decision or a safe decision when you don't need to. And the reason for this is because when we don't know what's around us, when we don't know what our options are, we panic, right? If you've ever been on the pitch and you've gotten the ball in the middle and you had no idea what was around you, what did you do? Did you get tense? Did you kind of tense up a little bit? Did you kind of try and look over your shoulder? Did you take a bad touch? Maybe? Did you miss the ball completely? This is because you weren't aware of what was around you. But what if you knew exactly what was around you? What if you knew that what was behind you, to your left, to your right? What if you knew everything that was around you in a 360 degrees around you? What if you knew that? You're probably going to make a good decision because you're like, okay, I know that the player behind me isn't closing me down right now. I had a look. The player to my left is thinking about it, but he's backed off. There's no one coming from my right, and there's no one in front of me, so I can turn. It makes your decision easy, right? And if you're also aware of where your teammates are, you're like, okay, when I turn, I know that, Jim's making a run down the middle. I know that Sean is open on the left wing. And you can kind of see how this allows you to make better decisions because you know what's going on now. You're in tune with the game. You're aware of what's going on. And this is really helpful, especially when you're under pressure, because you could be like, okay, I'm receiving the ball, the defender's closing me down. Where are my teammates? Well, I see that Sean's making the run right there. Okay, if I play a good ball, I'll put him in. So then you can flick it to Sean. The point is, these work together. You need awareness, and having awareness will give you the good decision making, okay? And the big thing is with decision making is don't panic. A lot of players make the wrong decision because they panic. And I understand that's easier said than done. It's just something you have to work with. And I did make a video actually that was, what was it? It was how to deal with pressure, I believe, in soccer or something like that. I'll put the link in the description if you want to take a look at that. But it's so important because I understand why we panic, because you don't want to make a mistake. So the problem is it's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because when you panic, you're more prone to mistakes. But that's just kind of our natural reaction. So calm yourself and just realize that the more calm you are, the more clear-headed you are, the more likely it is that you'll make a good decision and not a poor decision. Remember, you can be as technical as whatever. You could be the most technical player. You could be the most physically gifted player. And this is the problem. Most players concentrate just on the physical aspects of the game, but the mental part is so important. Decision-making plays into the mental part. You need the technique to be able to play out what your vision is. So, for example, you need good passing in order to follow through with your decision, because you could be making a good decision and then just have poor execution. But that decision, being able to make those good decisions most of the time, is what separates good players from amazing players. You think of the players who make good decisions most of the time. We're talking players like Xavi, Iniesta. We're talking Pirlo. We're talking about top-level professionals. We're talking about the Messis and the Ronaldos and the Özils and the Steven Gerrards and the Frank Lampards. These are players, at least for some of them in their prime, that made amazing decisions. The Ronaldinhos. Ronaldinho wasn't just good because he could beat players or do incredible skill. He also made good decisions most of the time. He took players on when it made sense. He would beat 3 players, but it was a good decision because he knew he could do it. He would play clever balls when he knew it was the right thing to do. These are the most dangerous players. You'll see players that are just as skillful as a Ronaldinho or just as skillful as a Ronaldo who aren't as good as them. Why? Probably because they're not consistent with their decision making. They dribble for a little too long, or they don't play the pass when they need to, or they shoot at the wrong moments, right? The reason those players are so good is because they consistently make good decisions. And if you can become a college player that makes good decisions, you could play at a top college, in fact, if you can become that. If you can have good ball control, vision, passing, and decision making, if you can get in great shape, get physical enough or play physical enough to hang with the college players and get used to the fast level of play that college is known for, you could not only play and start on a team, you could be on a very, very good team. You could get yourself on a good team, a team that wins titles, a team that gets into NCAA championship brackets or whatever, tournaments is what I meant to say. So these are really some of the most important attributes, I think. Now, obviously there are more. For example, if you're a striker, you need good finishing. There's going to be different things per position, but in general, I think you need to have these things. You need to be in great shape no matter what you are. I don't care if you're a goalie or a striker or a center mid. You need to be in great shape. You need to be physical enough to hang, because it doesn't matter where you're playing on the pitch. If you're just shoved off the ball, if you can't contest headers, if you can't hang with the physicality of it, you're not going to play. And if you can't play quickly, if you can't make quick decisions, if you are too slow and keep losing the ball, you won't play as well. If you have poor ball control, you won't play. If you have no vision, you won't play. Your passing is always off, you won't play. And if your decision making sucks, you won't play. But if you have all those attributes in abundance, you will play, and who knows how far you can go. Now, as far as positions, I played striker, so let me tell the strikers who are listening something that will allow you to be a good striker. Work on your goddamn finishing. Seriously, the amount of strikers I saw who played in college who couldn't bloody finish were just, it was infuriating, because that is the main thing you need to do as a striker. You need to either set up teammates or score goals. And the thing is, I didn't even have many chances in matches, but I had good finishing to the point where if I got a chance or even 2 chances in a match, I would usually score at least one of them. And you need to start doing that as well. And the thing is, you can work on your finishing. You can practice it. You can go to the field every single day and work on putting the balls in the corner, work on rounding an invisible keeper, work on chipping the keeper, work on your finishes, work on finishing quickly, first time finishes. You can work on all this stuff that's going to score you a lot of goals, because if you have composure and good finishing ability, mixed with other things like good runs and things like that, you can be a lethal striker in college. Like I came into that college season out of shape. I got in shape eventually. I came in off an injury. I hadn't played in a little bit, and I was able to do well because I did, these things I'm talking about, and I had good finishing. So to the strikers, if you can score goals, you will do well, okay? And the rest of these things. And one of the things that allowed me to score goals was my good decision making, my good ball control, vision, things like that, okay? So, all right, there we go. So that's, I think, the first time we spent the podcast on a whole topic. I think it's a pretty important one because I want everyone who watches Simply Soccer to go play college or professionally even. Some of you may not want to, like you don't have to play college and you don't have to play professionally, but it's a great thing to do if you want to keep playing and you love the game. Again, it's not required or anything. Never feel like you have to do something, but these are things that will help you thrive in a college environment. And of course, the things I went over right now are just some of the things I've noticed that good players have and average players don't. There's way more to it. Of course, per position is going to be different, obviously, but this is like kind of college soccer in a nutshell. If you can get good at these things, you can and then you can get good at the other stuff. It'll become more nuanced, but you can get good at those things too. All right, guys. So yeah, this is the first podcast we did that went all the way through with one subject or topic. Please leave your questions down below. With anything you want covered in a podcast. Get pretty specific with your questions. A lot of you, or not too specific, you can be pretty broad with them, but a lot of you are asking questions that would take like 30 seconds to answer, and it's not really good for a podcast, so to speak. Someone asked me, if I can answer your questions in the comments, I will, or just, send me something on Twitter and I'll try and answer. Follow me on Twitter as well. I'm going to try and be more active on there. And that'll give you like a play-by-play what's going on with the channel. I'll announce new series. I'll let you know if there are videos coming up. And unless something is said, expect them to be up. But that's a good place to contact me if you're looking to get a question answered, or you're just looking to talk, or, whatever, man. Because I have so many emails I still need to answer, and Facebook messages. And if you've sent me a Facebook message or an email, it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's just I get so many sometimes that it's overwhelming, and it's hard to answer all of them. Okay, so thanks, guys, for listening. You know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that share button. That helps the channel out. So if you like Simply Soccer, taking a few seconds to do that is great, because the more people who view this video, the more people who like it, the more the channel grows. If you're new to Simply Soccer and you listened all the way through, dude, you're awesome. Thanks for listening to like a 30+ minute podcast with someone you don't even know. That's dedication right there. Please consider subscribing, because we do this every week, and we release other videos that are designed to help you improve as a player every single week. So definitely subscribe if you like this and you want more. All right, and leave your questions down below. Again, any question, try and keep them to questions that I can take some time to answer more in depth. If you have any simple questions, I'll just try and answer them in comments, but I can't always remember. Contact me on Twitter or something. And let's do the hashtag. We'll do hashtag college. Actually, do hashtag college soccer, because that makes a little more sense. So hashtag college soccer. Remember, you have to do it as all one word, and then ask your question. And by doing that, it just lets me know you've listened all the way to the end. Even if you don't have a question and you've listened all the way to the end, just put hashtag college soccer in the comments. That just lets me know that you've listened all the way to the end, and it's very encouraging for me, and allows me to know how dedicated you are to learning new information and improving yourself. All right, guys, so thank you so much for listening. We will have a video out tomorrow on Saturday. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Leave again the questions for next podcast, or I'll just choose another topic. We'll see. Again, if I get a good question, I'll definitely answer it. But that's it, guys. Thank you for listening. And I'll see you on the next video, or talk to you in the next podcast. Peace.